time is really hard work. You might not get a day off in weeks. When I knew that I needed to build a bulletproof buggy, I knew that I had to call in the experts, Al and Andrew.
Al, you got any ideas?
Yeah, got some ideas, all right.
Oh, my cheeks are hurting.
That's about a 14-metre difference.
Lock her on. Oh, look at that.
If you're as good as that in the kitchen, you are marriage material.
Get back to work. With all the work that Terrain Tamer's doing, I'm really hoping that this buggy will be as strong as it possibly can.
We're going to get stuck into the steering knuckle now, a swivel hub assembly, whatever you want to call it. And also, you've got quite a bit of damage to tie rod in, see all the boots and rubbers are perished. So we're going to go right through all this and replace it all. So our first step is undoing the brake hose. So we can remove the backing plate and then remove the stub axle. Rightio, so now we've got the stub axle off, we can pull our CV out. Now there's two flat spots, so they'll only come out in one position. Find it. There we go.
Right.
Bottom.
I've not seen this part of a vehicle before.
Yeah, so this is called a constant velocity joint, or CV joint for short. So the whole idea is like a universal joint actually slows down as it rotates when you're rotating it through an angle, whereas this won't. That's what they call a constant velocity. The only drawback of this is that it's a little bit more delicate and a little bit weaker than, say, like a universal joint style system.
Yeah, these things cop a beating in the bull buggies.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. One thing I've just noticed before, your tie rod's bent. It's a good thing we're pulling all this apart anyway. The tie rods are part of the steering system. They hold the wheels tracking in alignment amongst other things. The long threads on the tie rod ends allow for front end adjustment. As we disassemble a swivel hub, we make sure to keep all of the shim stacks together, taking note of whether they come off the top or the bottom. If we put them back in wrong, it can cause axle misalignment. Well, I'll let you whip these out. It's exactly the same as the wheel bearings. You've got a relieved notch there so you can access the bearing. You'll have the same thing top and bottom. Nice and even. Beautiful. Then Jess gives the steering knuckles a good clean so that we're not contaminating the new CVs with dirty grease.
Is that something I can do?
Oh, yeah, depends how hard you can hit.
Do you want to find out? All right, whereabouts do I hit?
Just like we did with the steering arm, you want to hit it end on. That can be really stubborn. Try that. It's alright, my nickname's Lightning too. Never strike at the same place twice. Dang. Beautiful.
It's a big workout for a fat truckie.
Only 6 more to go.
You're joking, right?
I am. This is an inner axle seal. It goes up inside the axle housing and it just stops the oil from the diff oil coming up and contaminating the grease for your hubs. So we've got a very sophisticated tool here. I even gave it a part number, TB101. Unfortunately, we don't have the tool to put it in, so we improv. Because we're working in the bush and don't have the seal driver to install the inner axle seal, we've improvised and using an old tow ball. The steering knuckle seals are made up of several pieces: a rubber seal, a support shim, a felt seal, and 2 retaining plates. We give the stub axle a good scrub, ready for reuse.
Okay, so this is all the steering arm bits. We've got a tie rod between the 2 wheels, which is good, except it's bent. We'll just straighten that out. It's been hit by a rock or something, or some guy might have put a tow rope around it and bent it. That happens. Drag link, that goes from the steering box down to this side. And as the suspension goes up and down, hopefully it doesn't steer one way or the other. Tie rods, look, they're too tight or they're too loose. We're going to replace them. We've got all these Tamer stuff here. This crummy old steering damper. One of the best things we've ever got on my vehicle that worked, that project vehicle, is a steering damper. They're brilliant. I've been away with people that have got blood on their hands after the end of a day fighting the blooming steering wheel. They're perfect. They're really good. And we'll whack one on there. It's got ball joints both ends, which means that when these do move and distort, the ball joint will cope for it. But these, they don't, they jam up. This teeny little thing, we'll get rid of that. Ball joints, yeah, so they've got to be adjusted right up tight, back it off half a turn, and then more to the split pin. Never use your own sockets when you belt them on because you'll damage them. Someone else's.
Use someone else's.
Belt it.
A good tip here is to count how many turns you make, so that when you install the new joints, you can screw it in the same amount of turns to roughly maintain the original wheel alignment.
1, 2, 3.
This hasn't been apart for years, right? It's full of mud and slush and dirt, and it's probably rusted on there. So just to give it an idea who's boss, I like to put it on something solid and give it a bit of a hide. Not terribly much, and be careful up this end, but that'll shake all the little bits of dirt out of it. But then I also pick it up off there, and I give it a bit of a hiding like that. If you were able to measure the vibrations in that, different there, it's different vibrations than if I pick it up. It's shaking like mad, it's scared stiff.
When working with Al and Andrew, you know you're going to learn something along the way. Even if it's unconventional.
So now we've got something just to bend this thing. We're going to hold it in the vise, but the moment I start bending this, it's going to squash that up. And all we'll do is put in there, I'll just chop off a bit of the old tie rod and screw it in there. You good at cutting?
Yeah, I can do
Right, we've got band-aids.
Jess is cutting off a section of the old tie rod end. This will be installed into the end of the tie rod to prevent the thread from getting damaged while we straighten the tie rod.
That'll do. Take her out there, honey. Now let's see that. If you're as good as that in the kitchen, you are marriage material.
I have the feeling that because Alan's in his 80s, he reckons he can get away with comments like that. Can someone tell him it's the 21st century already? We're just about to reassemble your swivel hub, so we'll just start by repacking your kingpin bearings. Fortunately for us, the kingpin bearing preload and axle alignment is correct, and no adjustment is required. Beautiful. Okay, so this is our new Tamer CV.
Is this grease with it?
That is grease. It's a
Just
special
normal
grease.
grease?
No,
Oh,
it's a molly grease. You need to pop the circlet into the groove. I like to pack the centre of the axle. The reason why I do that, when I put the axle in, forces it up through all the ball race and that. That's where your axle seal runs. Beautiful, like I bought one. Power tools or air tools are fantastic for getting the job done in a hurry, but make sure you check the final tension using a hand tool.
Okay, so that's all right. What we'll do now is drive down the road and see where the steering is. And if it's not right, we'll just adjust it a little bit because the proof of the pudding's in the driving. So if there's nobody coming, we'll swerve it violently from one side to the other and just see how it reacts. Real fast.
That feels a lot better than what it was.
Coming up on the next episode,
What are you doing under there? Aren't we supposed to be working on the BJ70?
we're going to put a set of parabolic springs under your ute.
They're quieter, lighter, more ground clearance.
What's all this business?
In the absence of something to test the suspension, this is one of the things that we're going to use.
He looks happy. I mean, not that I can see his face, but he looks happy.
Oh, my cheeks ache.